White's impression. Uh,
He's gonna
uh,
get 50,000. He's gonna get 50K.
all right. I hear you. Thank you. We have 5 people, 4 people watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hit that like button, smash the like button. Appreciate it. Shout out to you guys. Also, you could chip in the comment section, and we'll be sure to read it. Yeah. All right. Let's go for the first topic. The first topic is, as you know, Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo have a new podcast called Pound for Pound. It's not so new because it's been ongoing for over a month now. They've got a couple of guests on, some exciting episodes. It's really, really a good lesson if you are on for those type of things. And this week they had the almighty Dana White in
I
person. And
thought Dana White said he's done with podcasts.
oh, did he say he was going to start a
Yeah,
podcast of his own?
no. Dana White said he's done with podcasts after that.
Oh yeah, after that Howie Mandel situation, right?
How he, yeah. Why did he come?
Anyway, yeah, it's Usman, and we know that Kamaru Usman. I mean, Dana White absolutely loves Kamaru Usman. When Usman was a champion, he was a stud. He was a company guy. He was a yes man to the company, basically, and
And a
for
money
that he
maker.
was rewarded.
Money maker.
Yeah, he was rewarded handsomely, rather. Even though a lot of people were throwing shit at him, but Kamaru Usman is a stud, which is bringing me to why I'm bringing up this podcast. In that podcast, Dana White did say, this isn't his first time of saying that, by the way. He did say that Kamaru Usman is the welterweight GOAT of the UFC. And this begs a lot of question. A lot of people would chime in and be like, how about GSP?
How about
And
GSP?
yes, like Demola here. Demola will be like, "How about GSP? GSP did this. GSP did that." Well, first of all, there's the fact that Dana is a businessman, and the fact that GSP is retired and Usman is not retired. He would rather big up Usman so Usman can actually draw more if he eventually fights again, rather than him putting Usman down. But I want to hear from you. Do you agree that Kamaru Usman is the welterweight GOAT of the UFC? I have my reasons that I will tell you yes, he is, but I would want to hear you first.
Okay, so basically, there has to be a method to the madness, right? So, or what are the yardsticks you're using to measure this greatness? So let's talk about things like the winning streaks, right? Let's talk about things like the strength of schedule. Who were the people that this guy has faced, right? That is the quality of the opposition. Also, we could also talk about the commercial value, right? So, three things: commercial value, quality of opposition, and the winning streak. GSP had a 13 fight winning streak, right? But then in terms of the quality of the opposition that he faced killers, in his own age and time. But something interesting about GSP's resume is the fact that he actually beat everybody he ever faced. So it means he avenged, the losses on his resume, and that is impressive. That is fantastic. I remember he retired, I think, in 2017, thereabouts, right? He beat the likes of Michael Bisping and the likes, right? But you would agree with me, between 2017 and 2024, the sport has changed, right? There's been a massive evolution in the sport. You have, very, very technical, very strong, very, very refined fighters that have come since 2017. And Usman has actually taken the mantle, when did Usman become champion? uh 2018 thereabouts, if I'm not mistaken, or
Mm-hmm,
2019.
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
right. And then he basically ran through the division twice on his way going up, and when he became champion. So he's been the most dominant champion basically in welterweight. But also in terms of the commercial value, Usman has actually sold more pay-per-views, right, for the UFC than
Well,
GSP.
I would say Usman has the record for the most pay-per-view sales for a UFC title fight. If you wouldn't know, that would be his fight in Fight Island during the pandemic with
Against Masvidal.
Masvidal. I believe that fight sold about 1.2 million pay-per-view buys, which Nobody outside of Conor McGregor has done that for the UFC before. So although you can't argue that Masvidal was like one significant part of the card being a huge draw, but you can't take
Yeah, Usman
anything
was
away
the A
from the
side.
champion.
Usman
Yeah,
was the A
they had.
side, bro.
Yeah, Usman was the A side. Usman so did a good business for the UFC when he fought Masvidal the second time. When he fought Kobe
Mhm,
twice, he did good business for them.
mhm.
So absolutely, the UFC, Dana White adores him for that reason. He puts him against up with GSP up there as likely the greatest of all time. I would accept. And here's another thing, right? GSP had a lot of hype and a lot of buzz around him if he fights in Canada or when he fights in Canada. So
Because
Canada
he
is
had the
sort of
country
like,
behind him, basically. He had that country
yes,
behind him.
yes. So Canadians, they rally behind their own. We've seen it in pro wrestling with like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Edge, Chris Jericho. Whenever they go home, even though they portray to be the bad guys on TV, the crowd will still cheer them. So GSP was like a god in Canada. So UFC were doing good business when they go to Canada in the arenas, but not necessarily on the pay-per-views. I think GSP had one. His biggest pay-per-view was about 900K. I think that was the time that he fought one of the Diaz brothers, if I'm correct. But anyways, um, if you talk about bringing money, Kamaru Usman
The
would
commercial
have
value, Cameron
potentially,
has the edge, right?
because
In terms
we
of
know that
winning streak as well. Cameron
Yeah,
has the
Yaz Island was a big deal for the UFC during the pandemic. It was a big needle mover for them when they put all their earnings, because UFC is a public traded company. You could see their numbers if you go online, and you would see that the number, if you look at the little graph, the graph shot up during the pandemic, like went from this to this. And one of the biggest turning point was Fight Island. And Usman was literally the A side going into that event. Even though the main event was a bit of a dud, the rematch was not. But
knockout.
yeah,
That
there
was the
is that.
knockout.
And also Usman was this close. I'm talking about 1 minute short of breaking the all-time record for the most wins
Anderson
in
Silva's
UFC
record.
history. So not just in the welterweight. So if you look at that as well, that would be something. I think we will probably not have this argument if Usman had beaten Leon Edwards that night before that head kick came around. I think a lot of people will not even say welterweight good. They'll put him up there with the rest of the guys that are up there in the upper high echelon of being the goats in MMA. But
He
yeah,
is
Usman
he is
still.
in that conversation, to be honest, right? I don't know if you saw
So
the
so
top
so so
30 list
yeah. So
recently.
so 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 there's a thing in sports about goat and Mount Rushmores, right? We It's not about the body of the career. It's also about how you ended your career, right? Anderson
Recency
Silva did
bias.
a Wait, Anderson Silva did a big dent to his career because he continued fighting even when he wasn't what he was, right? He was taking L's up and down, and that wasn't a good look for us. That's why, like, if you want to argue about GOAT, you would always kind of like scratch your head when you're talking about Anderson Silva, right? But someone like Khabib did not stay on top for too long. He went away without losing, and like the way he left the game, if you're talking about GOAT, you can just throw him in there and nobody can be like, because they have never seen a moment of weakness from Khabib. Speaking about greatness, Zinedine Zidane, it's a football reference. Zidane left football when he was on top of his game. He literally just played the finals of the World Cup and was like, I'm done. So, um, that would come into play with how Usman would end his career. GSP ended his career winning a title and relinquishing it. You see, that's a very beautiful way to end your career, right? That's a good career. How will Usman end his? Will Usman win a title and walk down the sunset, or will he win like a big burner fight, like maybe winner leaves town sort of situation or whatever? Would it be like a big main event that he wins and then walks away, leaves his glove in the cage rather? It all depends that what would happen with how Usman's story will end in MMA. That will determine if we are going to call him a goat or not. Sure time first ballot Hall of Famer. But my thing is, let's see how his career is going to end. If I would make a prediction, I say he still has like 2 or 3 fights left. What about you?
We can only wait and see. I think, yeah, I agree with the 2 or 3 fights left, but I want to see him get that win back against Chimaev because I feel like that fight, if it were a 5 round fight, it would have been a really different conversation. So I'd like
Mhm.
to see him main event against Chimaev, get that win back, and probably grab the welterweight, title again, or get the middleweight title. And there is no conversation any longer about his good status.
Okay.
There is
Hmm.
God. Oh.
All right, next one.
I see you.
Uh,
You are trigger happy. You're trigger happy today.
yes,
with the
yes,
new
yes, my
feature,
brother.
with the new feature you've been
Yes.
able to get.
Oh, yes, 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 my brother. Funke,
Funke,
man.
Funke.
Why?
All right, so we are going to go next. Next. All right, I in the top of the show, top of the hour, like Jim Cornette will say. Tough month. This is from Cameron Simon, by the way, via our Patreon page. Tough month for African MMA. Who would you like to book Mohammed